So, every year, a bunch of my friends and I like to go out into the woods and go camping. It's one of our favorite things to do. There's only been one time, though, where it went horribly wrong. Last year, we were out camping at Hershey Park Camping Resort. We've been to this spot for years, and we're pretty much used to it. There were 8 of us total with 2 tents. The sun was set, and we made a fire. We had some beers, listened to some music, and complained about our lives back home in the real world. Normal stuff, you know? Well, we decided that it was time to go to bed. We were going to do this long hike in the morning, and we needed our rest. We kept the fire going just to ward off any unwanted animals, and we split up 4 and 4 into the 2 tents. It couldn't have been more than an hour after we all went to bed when I suddenly woke up. I could hear this unusually loud noise coming from outside the tent. It was like this sniffing sound, but like loud sniffing, if that makes sense. My first thoughts were that it could be an animal or a possible bear. So I gently woke up the other guys in my tent and told them to be quiet and listen. Our tents were zipped up so we couldn't see what was out there, and if it was a bear, we did not want to make any sudden movements or noises. The sniffing continued, like it was not even 3 feet from our tent. I texted my other friends in the other tent, asking if they were awake and did they hear any of the sniffing. They finally replied back saying yes, they're awake and they do hear the sniffing. Then I got a text from them saying they don't think it's a bear. That's when screaming broke out into the night. At this point, we didn't care what was out there, and it sounded like our friends were in trouble from the other tent. We unzipped ours and jumped out of it. What I saw was my friends yelling and trying to fight off this unknown guy who was now running into the woods. I only saw a glimpse of him, but he looked wild, like no shirt, hairy, and long matted hair. He was gone so fast. My one friend from the other tent said whoever he was, that the guy was sniffing around our stuff. We did a quick inventory of our supplies we left out and noticed that we were missing food, some lanterns, and, worst of all, the axe that we used to chop up the wood. Knowing that this crazed woodsman had an axe and was running around wild, we packed up everything immediately and hiked back to our cars. We didn't encounter him again, thank God, but there was no way in hell that we were going to stay the rest of the night with a madman out there with an axe. We reported the incident later to the park ranger. From what I know, this guy was never caught, and there haven't been any other incidents of campers who encountered him in the park. We still go camping every year, but nothing like this has happened since, and I hope it stays that way. Last year, my girlfriend and I went camping out in Tyler State Park in Pennsylvania. It's a pretty decent camping spot where you can go hiking, ride your bikes, go boating, and camping. Well, we were there for a 2-day camping trip. The first day, everything was completely normal and fun. We even ran into some high school friends of ours from back in the day. But the second day is where shit really hit the fan. It was getting dark out, and me and my girlfriend were just sitting by the fire. I was smoking a cigarette, and she was drinking a beer. We got pretty tired, and decided that we would call it a night, and we went to sleep in our tent. Around 3:30 a.m. I woke up. I remember it was pretty dark inside the tent because the fire had died down, and the clouds were covering the moon. But the reason that I woke up was because I heard this thumping sound, almost like someone had thrown a bag of rocks onto the ground. I looked at my girlfriend, who was still fast asleep and did not wake up from the noise. For a moment, I almost decided to unzip our tent and go outside to see what it was. But I decided not to, because I figured it was just the sounds of the woods or an animal, and just decided to go back to bed. The next morning, we woke up sleepy and lazy. It was the last day of our trip, and we were planning on going kayaking. I opened up our tent to make some coffee and start packing up our gear for the day, but I didn't even make it 1 foot outside of the tent, because laying at the base of our tent was the severed head of a kangaroo. Full on, chopped off head. I guess at first I wanted to believe that it was a prop or something fake, but I kicked it, and when it landed, I could see the insides. It was indeed real. My girlfriend came out and saw it. She almost had a mental breakdown. At that moment, I remember during the night hearing that thumping sound. I realized that this is what it was. And when I say the head was severed, I mean it was like a super clean cut. Like, whoever did it must have used something so sharp and with such force that it left no jagged edges. But that's the problem. Who the fuck decapitated the kangaroo's head? And better yet, why the hell did they leave it in front of our tent? We contacted the park ranger, who also got the police involved, and they were just as baffled as me and my girlfriend were. We honestly couldn't even finish our last day of camping. My girlfriend was so disturbed by this, and we decided that we would just pack up and go home. I tell this story to all my friends and family, and no one can understand how or why this would happen. If the park rangers or the police ever figure out who did this, I'll be sure to keep you updated. Happy camping, everyone. Not too long ago, a couple of my friends and I went out camping during the summertime. It was me, Jeff, and Isaac. We weren't the most experienced campers, if I'm being honest, but something about being in the woods and living simply was appealing to us. But anyway, this story happened out in Harrington Beach State Park, which is located right along the shore of Lake Michigan. It was getting dark out, and to wind down the night, we decided to play this drinking game called Drink, Drink, Shot. Think of the classic game Duck, Duck, Goose, but with alcohol. It's stupid, I know, but it gets you hammered pretty quickly. After we were all pretty drunk, we made our way back to the tent and literally passed out. I want to say maybe an hour or two after we passed out, almost as if on cue, I remember that we all woke up at once. We all sat up, looking at each other in the dark tent. The reason we woke up was because we heard footsteps walking on dead leaves and twigs outside. We thought maybe there was someone out there stalking us, or it was an animal close by. And yes, we were still a bit drunk at this point, or at least I was. We sat there silently and really listened. It almost sounded as if someone was walking in circles around the tent. We decided that we had to check it out. We opened the tent. It was pretty dark outside. The moonlight was just peeking through the clouds, which gave us enough light to see somewhat. We started calling out and walking around. We stuck together, but after 20 minutes of searching and seeing if any of our camping equipment was gone, we decided that it was most likely just an animal who was curious and scattered into the woods. We laughed a bit at our paranoia and then went back into our tent to go to sleep. But we were right to be paranoid. The next morning we all woke up and went to make a fire to cook some eggs for breakfast. While I was getting the pan and Jeff was lighting the fire, Isaac went off into the woods to take a piss. Jeff had just lit the fire when Isaac yelled for us to come here. We found Isaac standing and looking up at a tree. We asked what's up, but then we saw it. Hanging in the tree, each with ropes around their necks, were 3 dolls. And on each of the doll stomachs were our names. One for Jeff, one for Isaac, and one for me. But what was even more disturbing was that each of the eyes had these pinprick needles sticking in them. They kind of reminded me of voodoo dolls or whatever you call them. We cut the dolls down with a knife. They were definitely not there the day before, so whoever did this did it last night when we were asleep. Honestly, we were freaked the fuck out, because whoever did this knew all of our names and was most likely stalking us. We took the dolls and threw them into the lake about a mile away. We still go out camping every now and then, but we never did find out who hung up these dolls and who wrote our names on them. I mean, I don't even understand the motive for it. Has anyone else had any kind of encounter like this? It's pretty unsettling if I'm being honest. But yeah, we're all okay and alive. I don't think any curses or plagues are on us, at least so far. Stay safe out there, guys.